morning, I was going to say, but it is really definitely the afternoon. All right, we're going to talk today about overcoming overthinking. So I've got a couple of cameras hanging here, so if I'm looking away, you'll know where I am. So welcome if you're on LinkedIn. Lovely to see you. Facebook and Instagram as well. Drop a comment if where you're listening from and what you're going to get out of this today. So let's talk about overthinking. I want to dive into this because I was absolutely shocked by a statistic out of a poll last week, or actually this week, where it showed 77% of professionals had indicated that they had overthinking, or they were struggling with overthinking, and it was affecting their work. So if you are the type of person that keeps putting off their decisions at least twice a week, even when you have all the information and you still go back to reanalyze everything or ask for additional information just to be sure, this might be a perfect training for you today. But where this actually could help even more is if you're the type of person that waits until the very last minute before the deadlines to make a decision, or you find yourself rehashing conversations or decisions that you made at the end of the day at least 3 times a week. In fact, that's probably been your cycle for at least the last 3 to 4 months. So I want to show you how to start fixing all of that today. And because you're doing all of that, you're probably also working 5 to 10 hours a minimum a week more than you should. And you keep doing it because you have this constant need to make sure that you're making the right decision, taking the right action, and implementing the right strategy, which, guess what? There isn't always a right strategy. All because you want to avoid making any mistakes because you don't want to be seen as a failure. In fact, you are constantly analyzing and rehashing interactions from your emails, phone calls, to your meetings to see what you may have missed, what you could have done better. So if I've described you, if any one of these things described you, then you're what I call an anxious leader. And today's conversation is specifically designed to address each one of those problems that I mentioned. So when your state is in a mind of swirling thoughts of rehashing your past experiences, and usually you're concentrating on the bad experiences, you're worrying about the future, you might be second guessing yourself and your decisions, or imagining worst case scenarios, the mental exhaustion that you can be feeling would be enormous. And talking from a recovering, and I say this very clearly, a recovering overthinker, the mental exhaustion is just nonstop, because your overthinking doesn't just turn on at 9 o'clock when you go to work and turns off at 5 o'clock, but you're likely doing this in your work, in your private life, and everywhere in between, which means things like not sleeping well at least a couple times during the week is going to happen because you haven't turned your brain off. So I'm really curious, and you can drop it in the comments if you feel okay. And if not, you want to do it more privately, then send me a private message. But have you asked yourself in the quieter moments why you overthink? Now, we're just about coming towards the end of the summer holidays. So maybe you've had a great holiday to start thinking about what are, if you've had the chance to get some peace and quiet, at least if you go on holidays. I'm not sure if your kids are younger like mine. There's not a lot of peace and quiet on a holiday, but you will likely have been away from your regular routine, and all of a sudden you notice that things start showing up a little easier in terms of your thoughts. They might have quieted down. You might have started to be able to enjoy what you're doing and be more present in the here and now. Now, in those quiet moments is a great time to just kind of reflect and ask yourself, why am I overthinking? Some of the reasons that I have gotten from my coaching clients in the past couple of years has been along the lines of, well, I need to be a critical thinker. And if I critically think about something long term, it'll lead to the best solution. Another I get very often is, well, I need to look at every single angle of a situation to understand what is the best course of action. And oftentimes that's coupled with the right course of action. And also there's one that in the past, there's this fear that you may have taken action too quickly and you missed out on some vital information, and that caused a bad experience for you at the time. So you want to be best prepared for any future risks and opportunities and make sure you haven't missed any key information. So those are some of the reasons that I've heard that is causing their overthinking. But instead of really getting to the outcomes that you want, right? So the reasons that is like you want to have the best solution or the best course of action or the right action, or you want to be best prepared for any future risks and opportunities. What happens instead is you end up thinking about something for too long and you find yourself lacking time or energy or possibly both that you need to take any kind of action at all. Or you might end up in the situation where the decision gets made for you, or that the circumstances have changed so significantly that the decision that you needed to make no longer is relevant. Now, if we look back at the past 2 years with a pandemic, and if we look forward in the news of there's a recession looming, which is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I won't get into that in this video, but the more we talk about it, the more likely it's going to happen because you're going to take action to prevent it. So with all these moving parts of the pandemic or recession and anything else that's coming up and all the changes that are happening, and let's be honest, the technology changes so quickly some of these days that it's sometimes really hard for people to keep up. And if you're an overthinker, it's even worse because you have to speed up what you're doing, but you have to also be resilient at the same time. So you're being asked to make decisions really quickly, and at times you're like, there's no way that I want to do this. And what you can find yourself is in a state of being stuck doing nothing, where you're looking at your screen, your computer screen, you're like, I need to make a decision. I really need I need to take some actions, and you're not doing it. Maybe you're distracting yourself with another task, or you find yourself lost in the scroll on your phone because, hey, if I could just get some inspiration, maybe that will help. So that's not really going to get you to where you need to be. So again, in the short term, your thinking, your overthinking, in a sense, seems to be appears to be the best strategy. But in the long term, it actually can do a lot more damage. Now, I want to be careful in this. I'm not saying you need to make instant decisions. Okay, we're on a spectrum here. It's not. I'm expecting to make this snap decisions each and every time, but there's a fine line between thinking critically and overthinking. Overthinking is when you keep rehashing, reliving, looking for more. And critical thinking is when you accepted the fact that you may not have all of the information, but 70 to 80% of the information you have, and that is going to be more than enough to make a decision and take some action. And you trust in yourself that when you take the action and you get more information, that you have the flexibility and the ability to adapt to that new information and the situation that then comes up. Now, if you're really looking at the core of overthinking. Now, this is making sense to anyone. If this makes sense, just drop a yes in the comments, or if what I shared about the reasons, are they resonating with you, then please drop a yes in the comments and let me know what you think. So when we're looking at what's causing the overthinking, it's often linked to feelings of anxiety or fear. In changing your thoughts and mindset, that's how you can actually solve your overthinking more often. So we've got a level of fear and anxiety that's coming in that is driving that overthinking. And let's look back. So for example, one of the reasons that you're overthinking could be, well, you need to look at every angle of the situation to understand what is the best course of action. Okay, so what is the fear that's behind that? A fear that's behind that could be something around, I don't want to fail in what I'm doing. I don't want to look like I made a mistake. I want to avoid upsetting someone. Excuse me. So excuse me, when you need to get into the behind that anxiety fear, that's where you start involving your mindset. Now, before I share a little bit more into the mindset and how you can change it, let's start talking about first 3 different types of overthinking. And I'm really curious. So if one of these types of overthinking resonates with you, then please drop in the comments which one you are. So the first one is mind reader. So are you mind reading in terms of your overthinking? So, and we have all been guilty of this, but just consider, have you found yourself in a situation where you're convinced that everyone is thinking something bad about you because of what you did or said, and maybe it's something you did silly, or maybe because you mispronounced a word or you had a spelling mistake in your presentation, and now all of a sudden you think, well, everyone must be thinking I'm an idiot, or I just don't know what I'm talking about. So when you're in this mind reading state, it can actually lead you to start criticizing yourself and actually have a negative attitude towards any other person that's made you feel this way. So imagine yourself in that meeting and you're sitting around and you've made a mistake on a presentation, and it's a glaring mistake. Maybe you got a fact wrong, or a fact has changed since the last time you updated this presentation, and you're thinking everybody knows this and everybody's looking at me like an idiot. And then you're looking around and you start to feel negative also with those people because they're making you feel insecure. So what you're doing is, when you assume what someone else is thinking, you start to take everything really personally. So the way they look at you, maybe they have a smile, or maybe they are just making a comment to their colleague next to them. It seems like everything's driven to attack you because you're reading everything into every single little detail. Here's the thing. Most of the time, each of us are guilty of this. You are so busy worried about what the other person is thinking about you, and you haven't stopped to realize that that other person is probably just as busy worried about what you're thinking of them. Okay. So the majority of the time, honestly, no one is paying as much attention to you as you really think they are, because they're busy with what it's inside them, what other people are thinking about them. Okay, so that is the first type. So if you are a mind reading overthinker, then drop either one or drop a mind reader in the comments. I would love to hear which one of these is relevant to you. Now we're going into number 2. Number 2 is rumination. And this is the one, sort of like a circular type of thinking, where you continuously play something that's happened in the past, or you start worrying about something that's going to happen in the future. So, but it's just on an endless loop, right? We know all those loops that you can get into. Well, in first place, it's exhausting and a complete waste of time, because nothing can be done about either one of those scenarios. You're not in the past, so you can't fix the past. You have no idea what's going to happen in the future. You're only in the now. So if you keep going in that circular pattern, it's going to just mentally exhaust you. It also tends to flare up when you're feeling anxious, scared, or nervous. For example, right before a job interview, right? You're imagining, oh my God, what could possibly happen? And then you could also even mix up past experiences, future experiences, and create a very powerful loop in that sense. So it might feel like you're problem solving by trying to answer every single question you could be asked in that interview, or any type of situation that could be coming up. But in reality, you're actually just feeding your anxiety. Similar, if you ruminate on all the jobs you didn't get into the past, you're only going to blow up, exacerbate, make bigger the feelings of hopelessness and depression that are making you less likely to do a successful interview in this case. And you could apply the scenario to a presentation or a new project or new opportunity you're going to have, but you're actually pulling so much extra baggage in. It's going to be really hard to be successful when you've got all of that extra baggage of doubts and worries and anxieties that are building up based off of what you has happened in the past and what you could think could possibly happen in the future. So if you want to think about what you can do to improve your chances or to distract yourself, you have the power to remove yourself from these thoughts. So think about what could you stop thinking about, or what could you distract yourself with to be able to end the ruminating thoughts. Now, I did say this. We're going to get into mindset after we cover all three of them. And then I'll share with you a little bit how to change that as well, because just stopping thinking is really not going to be effective. And it's good if you feel like, well, if I could stop, I would have already, right? So it's not necessarily you want to stop right away, but you want to distract yourself with something else. Now, the third type. So before getting to the third type, the second type. So the second type again is rumination. So if you're a ruminator, then drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if you want to share it more personally, then send me a private message or direct message, and that's perfect. We'll talk about it there. The third one is catastrophizing. Okay, this one I'm very, very familiar with. This has always been one of my favorite ways to overthink. It's also known as making a mountain out of a molehill, right? You're going to completely think that the world is falling. It's like Chicken Little. There's something fell out of the sky, and you think the sky is falling. So what catastrophizing does, it involves focusing on the absolute worst possible outcome of a situation and all the negatives that could arise in your life as a result. It's really not that fun. Okay, so this could be that you have a goal for the end of the quarter, and the quarter so far hasn't been great. And maybe you've had a really bad last quarter, and you're like, oh my God, this quarter, if I don't get this quarter turned around, if I don't make the sales that I need to, if I don't make my KPIs that I need to in this quarter, what could happen to me is I could lose my job. And it doesn't even just stop there. So you may think losing my job, well, that's a big leap already. But you can also continue down, right? So what happens if you lose your job? Well, if I lose my job, oh my God, then then we can't go on holidays. And then if we can't go on holidays, well, maybe we can't pay for the food or pay our electric bill. And then we might lose our house, and end up homeless and alone on the street. Now, it went pretty fast. I went pretty fast down to the very worst that could happen. And maybe that's still not even the worst that could happen. Everyone has a different way of overthinking. But that is catastrophizing. It's not stopping just of like, well, hey, I might not get the results that I wanted this quarter. I'm going to miss my KPIs. Yeah, I'm going to have a performance conversation, and I won't be happy, and my managers won't be happy. The organization isn't happy. But then you continue on even further, right, to all the worst case scenarios. So if you're constantly focusing on the worst outcome, this can cause a lot of anxiety and distress for you, which you need to stop before it becomes overwhelming, because when it gets to the point where you've catastrophized so far, you'll actually do nothing. You won't be able to move simply because there's just nothing there for you. You're just like, oh my God, I can't do anything. And if I do something, this is going to happen. So you end up taking absolutely no action. Something that could help is to ask yourself what other outcomes there could be. So in a way, also distracting yourself, but asking yourself, what are the other outcomes? Or a question that I really like is, what if it all works out? What if it all works out? If it all would work out, what would I then do? So then when you have that, you can look at like, okay, well, I could choose the worst case scenario. And what you could use for your benefit is like, okay, I've identified some of the risks that are involved and I can mitigate those. But hey, on this hand, if it all works out, wow, wouldn't that be fabulous and fantastic? And then how do I make sure it's going to happen? You can start taking actions to work on your way there. All right. So which each of these types, so there's the three types, right? Mind reading, ruminating, and catastrophizing. We've given a couple little hints and tricks and some questions that you can ask yourself as you're in each of those. And I want to talk about one of the several strategies that I have within my Unlock Your Mind pillar of my Conscious Freedom method. And we're going to talk about mindset. And I want to give you one of those strategies that my clients use to start making the changes that they desire, because you might find yourself being able to answer rationally all the questions that are as a result of those 3 different types of overthinking, main types of overthinking. And yet the next day or tomorrow, you end up in the exact same habit once again. So let's go back. If you are the type of person, again, that is constantly second guessing yourself, you're always looking for more information in order to make sure that you're making the right decision, you are waiting till the last minute at all possible to make a decision. Remember, this is what I call the anxious leader. And if you're doing that, then this is a really good strategy for you. So, mindset works because what you're missing, if you're thinking just of the other overthinking, you're looking at it and going, hey, listen, I'm overthinking. And I know I'm overthinking because you feel that swirling in your mind. It's like it's racing constantly and you don't know how to get it to stop. Here's the thing though. I can tell you to stop and you would say, well, I can't stop because if I could stop, I would have already stopped. I can give you all those questions and you can answer those questions. And on paper, it looks really good. It's like, hey, yeah, if it all works out, this is what's possible for me. That's awesome. And you want to start taking actions. And then you get stopped again because you get stuck in that overthinking. That overthinking happens because we haven't gotten to the root of what's causing that overthinking. We haven't gotten to the root of what's causing those feelings and the emotions of anxiety or fear that are driving that overthinking. And most people will simply go, hey, this is my behavior. I'm overthinking. I need to stop that behavior and end it there. Except it doesn't work that way. So I want you to imagine having a garden. So if you're in a garden and you've planted all kinds of beautiful flowers, each of those flowers represents a goal, a dream, possibly your confidence or the impact that you want to have on the world, right? And you can even add in, this is your KPIs that you want to meet at your work. Maybe it's something you wanted to achieve in your personal life. But either way, you've planted all these flowers in your garden. And as with every garden, there's also going to be weeds. That these weeds are the negative thoughts or all of that overthinking that is swirling through your mind. And you can try and push away all these weeds. You can cut them back. You can even pull them out. But what happens when you don't get rid of them completely? Those weeds grow back and stop your flowers from growing. So unless you are going to remove the weeds at their roots, they will always prevent your flowers from growing into their full potential. So when you're just trying to stop your overthinking by, well, let's distract myself, and it can have an effect. Okay, I'm not saying it can't, but it will be short-lived. Or if you're going to look at those questions of what if everything works out, and then you start taking that first action, but the next time you take that same action, it doesn't work. It's because you haven't addressed the root of the problem. You're only temporarily masking all of that negative thoughts which have been driving that overthinking, and those negative thoughts are being backed up by limiting beliefs. These are experiences you've had in your lifetime, including your childhood, and they live in your subconscious mind. You may not even be aware that you have them right now because they have been formed on autopilot without your conscious mind. So this logical, rational part that's fully overthinking right now, they've been formed there without even your conscious part of your mind even thinking about it or choosing to do that. These limiting beliefs are the roots of automatic thought and behavior patterns which drive all of your actions. Your subconscious mind is where your confidence, your self-belief, and who you are comes from. So without identifying and changing the underlying negative thoughts and their limiting beliefs that live in your subconscious mind, you can have all those conscious thoughts that you want. You can keep telling yourself to stop thinking. You can keep asking yourself the questions, which I still highly recommend. Okay. The questions good questions lead to answers, but getting you into action, you need to do some more work in underneath the surface. So when you get all of that, you can have all the positive thoughts that you want, but it's not going to work for you if you're not changing what your subconscious believes. Okay, so let's kind of give you the little bit of the highlights. So I think you should understand the concept now. Let me know if it makes sense to you. I'd love to hear it in the comments, or drop me a DM if you have more specific questions. But if what I'm getting at here is your overthinking is a behavior. It's something that you keep doing. It's an action, it's a behavior, right? But that's being driven by what you think, by what you feel, and by you believe. So what you need to do is go back. It's like reverse engineering here. If you're overthinking, you need to start asking yourself, why? Why am I overthinking? What is driving that? What are the thoughts that I'm having? And what is the reason that I'm having those thoughts? And then those thoughts, so that's your behavior, that's your thoughts you're having. But then you're going to go back and go, okay, what am I feeling about this? Ask yourself what you're feeling. And before you say, well, I don't really have a lot of emotions around this, every emotion is a warning signal for you. There's going to be some emotion there. And that emotion, it's often easier to identify an emotion. So if you're feeling anxious or frustrated or overwhelmed, that's easier to get a hold of than getting a hold of all the thoughts that you're having. And then pull that further back and start diving into what are the beliefs that are driving all of those thoughts, those emotions, those action behaviors, the actions, and the results that you have. Okay, so let's review. We've gone through a lot of materials right now. So you need to work out the root of your overthinking. Okay, and that's where we started off, and we got into there as well, right? We remember the minds in order for you to shift your mindset, you need to get to the root of your beliefs. You need to change those beliefs. There are 3 types of overthinkers. Three main types. If you Google this, there are so many more different types or how they want to describe them. But honestly, these are the 3 main types that I've seen so far. But they are mind reading, rumination, and catastrophizing. So, and as last, remember that you need to go to the roots of your subconscious mind to understand your why and choose what you want to change and choose actively what you want to believe. All right, that's the entirety for today. So I would love to hear if this has been helpful for you. So please just comment in the comments or send me a DM message and let me know what you thought of today, if this resonated with you, if it made any sense. And I've also got some exciting training coming up in September. So I want you to drop me either DM me training or drop an emoji in the comments below and be the first to hear about a new training that I'm going to be introducing in September. It'll be in the second half of September, but I know you definitely want to get in on this. So yeah, drop me the word training either in a DM or you can drop an emoji in the comments below, and you will be the first to hear about the new training even before I announce it onto social media, and we can go from there. So if you're finding you're overthinking, go back through this video and watch it so that you can work out where it is that you can start making a difference to start just being able to make those decisions and not be constantly working longer, pushing yourself harder and feeling even more anxious. But instead, you can create more peace and calm in your day, be more productive, take the actions, and get the results that you're wanting to achieve. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you again, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.